Teacher Talking Sports, what does, what do, how we live. And let's continue the MLB Mount Rushmore series I've been doing, where I name who I believe are the four best players in each decade. Started in the 2010s. I'm back a century. Doing the 1910s today. I think I'm ending at the 19,000s. Maybe I'll do a pre-1900s one. I don't know. We'll see. But anyhow, let's get into the four guys I chose. Look at the Mount Rushmore. I'll get more into detail, more into detail on why I chose the four later in the video. But in alphabetical order by last name, I included Ty Cobb, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Walter Johnson, and Tris Speaker. Now, I knew for sure I was putting on Cobb and Walter Johnson. Tris Speaker was a pretty easy choice too. I kind of went back and forth with the fourth guy, with the three guys really. So I ended up going with Jackson, but I really thought long and hard about Eddie Collins, and I also thought about starting pitcher Pete Alexander. In the end, I gave the slight odd to Shoeless Joe. A couple other honorable mentions: Home Run Baker, Sam Crawford, Hippo Vaughn. You could even say Babe Ruth, who was mostly a starting pitcher in the decade, but a very good one at that. But let's get into it. Again, alphabetical order by last name, starting with Ty Cobb. Cobb, of course, played the whole decade with the Detroit Tigers. So in the 1910s, Cobb altogether batted .387 with a .997 OPS, 192 OPS plus. Of course, this was the era where homers were few and far between. 47 homers, 827 RBIs, 1,049 runs scored, and 576 stolen bases. Cobb was named the 1911 AL MVP. Also had finishes of 7th, 14th, and 20th. But I think MVP voting was far different than it is today, because in the decade, Cobb won 9 batting titles, twice batting over 400, never batted less than .368 in the decade. He had 5 seasons with over a 1,000 OPS, led the league in stolen bases 4 times, including 96 in 1915, led the league with 127 RBIs in 1911, 4 times led the league in runs scored. He had 6 seasons of at least 100 runs and had 148 in 146 games in 1911. 5 times led the league in hits. He had 5 seasons of the decade with at least 200 hits, led twice in doubles, 2 seasons of at least 40. 7 seasons at least 30. Also had double-digit triples every season, including 2 seasons of 24, which led the league. I mean, when you think of the all-time great hitters in baseball history, Ty Cobb's got to be one of the first guys that come to mind. According to Baseball Reference, led the league in WAR 4 times. He's the first member of my 1910s Mount Rushmore. Next, yes, I know the whole controversy surrounding Shoeless Joe Jackson, the 1919 Black Sox. Was he part of it? Did he not take part in the scandal? I'm not going to really get into it in this video. I'm just looking at how they performed. So he actually spent his first 5 seasons with then known as the Cleveland Naps. 1915 they became the Indians, but joined the White Sox later in that season and played the rest of the decade for the White Sox. But all in all, in the 1910s, Jackson batted .354 with a .933 OPS, 171 OPS plus, 42 homers, 665 RBIs, 765 runs scored, 148 triples, 265 doubles, 193 stolen bases. Jackson had MVP finishes of 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 9th in the decade. Batted over 300 every season in the 1910s, including batting .408 in 1911. Led the league in on-base percentage in 1911, led in slugging and OPS in 1913, each of the first 4 seasons of the decade. Jackson had over a 1,000 OPS for the year. Led the league in hits twice, 3 seasons of at least 200 hits. Led the league in doubles in 1913. He had 4 seasons with at least 39 doubles. Had 8 seasons of double-digit triples, including 26 in 1912. Twice had more than 90 RBIs, had another 3 seasons with at least 80 RBIs, also stole a good amount of bases in the decade. Jackson was a member of the 1917 World Series winning team, the Chicago White Sox, and, again, the 1919, I mean, he went 12 for 32, so some people are wondering whether he was a part of the whole scandal. But Shoeless Joe, yes, he's not in the Hall of Fame, but we know why. Definitely not because of his play on the field. And it's tough to leave off Eddie Collins, but I went with Shoeless Joe as a member of the 1910s Mount Rushmore. Next, let's go with the big train, Walter Johnson. Johnson played with the Washington Senators. Some people call them the Washington Nationals as well. From 1910 to 1919, the whole decade. So for the decade, Johnson went 265 and 143. With a 1.59 ERA, 327 complete games, 74 shutouts, 2,219 strikeouts, and a 0.95 whip. Johnson was named MVP in 1913, also had MVP finishes of 3rd and 5th in the decade. Won at least 20 games every season in the decade, led the league 5 times, including 36 wins in 1913, also had 33 in 1912. Led the league in ERA 4 times, had an ERA under 2 every season except 1917 when it was 2.21. Led the league in shutouts 6 times. Complete games 6 times, shutouts 5 times, innings pitched 5 times, strikeouts every season but one in 1911. He had 2 seasons with over 300 strikeouts. Johnson led the league in whip 5 times as well. 8 of the 10 seasons, Johnson had under a 1 whip for the year. A guy who barely walked anyone, had a 1.7 walks per 9 innings. For the decade, Walter Johnson, again, one of the all-time greats in the early days of the sport. Obvious choice for the Mount Rushmore. And let's end with Tris Speaker. Speaker played the first 6 seasons of the decade with the Boston Red Sox and the final 4 with the Cleveland Indians. So for the decade, Speaker batted .344 at a .913 OPS, 166 OPS plus, 38 homers, 718 RBIs, 967 runs, 367 doubles, 133 triples, 340 stolen bases. So Speaker won MVP in 1912, also had MVP finishes of 4th, 6th, and 12th, won a batting title in 1916 when he batted .386, batted over 300 every season in the decade, except 1919 when he batted .296, led the league in on-base percentage twice, slugging once, OPS once, homers once with 10, again, totally different era, had 2 seasons with at least 90 RBIs, had at least 30 stolen bases, in at least 29 stolen bases, let's say, in 7 of the first 8 seasons of the decade. 4 times led the league in doubles, including 53 in 1912. Led the league in hits twice, 2 seasons with over 200 hits. Had 4 seasons with over 100 runs scored. Tris Speaker, kind of one of the forgotten superstars of the early days of the game, was a member of 2 World Series winning teams with the Boston Red Sox in 1912 and 1915. Tris Speaker, the 4th member of my 1910s Mount Rushmore. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I doubt any of you saw these guys play, but they're still legends of the game for sure, and they should still be recognized. But stay tuned for tomorrow. I'll be doing the 1900s. Anyhow, don't forget to subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend to subscribe. Like the video, share the video, hit the bell for notifications. I'm out.